everybody. Welcome to the L-5 podcast. We are here again tonight with another great review for you guys. Tonight we watched the movie The Witches, the new version of The Witches on HBO Max. Ron Dahl's, I guess that's how you say it, Ron Dahl's The Witches.
I feared this was happening.
Then here, that means a test is coming.
Ladies, I have a plan. Andro, to transform a child into a mouse.
Whoa! Grandma, it's me!
Is that you, boy? We'll never let you get away with your filthy, evil plot.
Who's gonna stop me?
Doesn't matter who you are or what you look like, so long as somebody loves you.
So, as you all know, we usually watch the first 17 minutes and pause and give our thoughts and rating at the first 17 minutes. So, this was Stacy's pick tonight. So, I'm going to start the conversation off with Stacy. Would you like to go ahead and give us your 17-minute notes and review of the movie?
At 17 minutes, I did want to see the movie, but I liked, well, when I first saw it, and they start off with that car accident. First thing I thought really was that mandatory for 1968, for the backseat car seats? Which I have no idea why I thought that. I just remember when they said Chicago and driving up there in the snow, and I remember going there for growing up. We would go to Chicago and Detroit every year, and we had big old Bonneville Cadillac with that back seat, and it's like, I never wore a seatbelt. It was just, it wasn't until I got older that where it had the whole seatbelt thing. That's just made me think of that. And seeing that, and they were in Demopolis, Alabama. So I was like, yay! Since I'm from Alabama, never been to Demopolis, but I was like, Alabama, I recognize it. And the fact that you've seen the original one and you've seen the one now, the main characters for the grandmother and the child are Black, which was also a big difference than what it was in the original movie. So again, it's like, oh, Black, and you're from Alabama. And I just really like, okay. And I love the original Witches. I was like, okay, I'm ready for this. And so in that first 17 minutes, you see a whole lot of stuff that happens to that little kid, just loses his parents. And then he's with his grandmother and moved to a brand new state. And really, they don't talk about it, but I'm pretty sure it's a little bit shocking from Chicago to Demopolis, Alabama. So I'm sure he had a lot of changes he had to go through. And when I saw her grandma try to get him out of his whole sadness and everything, and it just seemed kind of really grandmother, like, oh, let me feed you, give me this big plate of chicken. And when I saw that play, I was like, those are like 6 big old chicken wings on there. But she is trying to feed the sadness out of him. And he didn't eat it. And then when they're in the kitchen and he's talking about cornbread, and again, because of me and how I was raised, I was like, that looked like Jiffy Mix. That's not real cornbread. She said it was like, cornbread is just like cake. I was like,
Jiffy is, because it's showing sweet, but not.
It's not sweet, and it's not that yellow. And maybe that's because how I was raised, it was not that color. It's not. That's
what
Jiffy
we
Mix.
You in the chat, Stacy would have said.
No. I was like, you're wrong for that. That's wrong. And but how she was getting them out, and I like the soundtrack of it because I was listening to some of the songs. It was all that Motown, it was just really, they really met with what the scene was at that time. And I'm not sure I'm telling too much. I am up to the 17. I'm still up to the 17 minutes. But when she gave him the mouse for the present, and that was in the book, and in the other movie. But when they showed the lady when he was in the hardware slash grocery store, which I guess maybe I've never been really to my, they have something like that versus just a grocery store and a regular store, but it probably is just a general store in general. And when she talked about which nails to get, the galvanized nails or regular nails, because you know if you get stuck on the rug, still get lockjaw. I'm like my parents, because like we never, if you step on a rusty nail, they didn't do. You go to the doctor, like you need to wrap that foot up in fat back and So when she said about I'm gonna have to dose you with all this stuff, I was like, oh god. That's straight up, just really old timey. Okay. And the snake, the lady, the first witch we see, and I loved her because I liked her outfit. I just thought it was a nice. I mean, I know she was evil, but the whole outfit ensemble, I was like, that didn't cry out witch for me. I was like, oh, I might take some candy from you because you look great. So I really did like that. But she was throwing out Eartha Kitt vibes for her voice.
Totally.
I could see that.
And I mean, it was just later on they talk about how the voice is supposed to sound. Like, no, she would sound like Eartha Kitt. So again, I probably would have taken the candy. So it was just one of those. But it still made me want to watch. So at 17 minutes, I believe that was at the point around about that where it's in the 17 minutes. And they go back to the house. I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm still running to see this.
What rating would you give it at 17 minutes out of 5?
Was the 3 was like recommend, or
4 is like I recommend it. 3 is like I'm glad I saw it.
Okay. 4, it'll be 4 at this point. Now things may change later on, but right now I'll say 4.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
So at 17, in the first 17 minutes, the first thing out of my mouth was, "Oh, I didn't know Chris Rock was in." So I didn't realize it at all. I'd seen a couple of trailers for this, but I never noticed the voiceover, so I didn't know he was in this. So I thought that was interesting. I love Octavia Spencer in this role. She's taking me back to my roots. Just like Stacey said, I think she plays that grandmama like that we grew up with, that we know. Like I could totally relate to her, and then that whole, you're sad, baby, giving you food and doing all that kind of stuff. So I related to a lot of that. It's funny because the next thing I wrote was the mouse kind of threw me off because I didn't know no Black parent was giving rodents to kids back in the day. Like, I know sometimes they do that kind of thing now, but now it makes more sense because it was in the book, Stacey. Because my parents were never giving me a rat, mouse, whatever it was. I don't know, but
I knew one person ever that was Black that had like a gerbil, and that's what and that's now. Back in the day, a mouse was vermin. So I mean,
exactly. That's what I'm like. You don't want that in your house, whatever. Especially in the country, you got them field rats or whatever. Like no, and then to think that he would take it out at night or during the day and play with it, and it could run. Oh no! So I was kind of like. So I went back to my roots, but then for me, I was like, wait a minute, what is this? I also love the music in this movie. I wrote that too. And I wrote that I thought at this point, I was feeling like this is pretty scary for kids. I was like, that whole Joker mouth thing, I thought it was very scary the way that they did it with all the teeth and everything. I don't know. What was this movie rated? Do we know? PG?
I'm not sure. It had to have been like PG-13, I would think.
I don't know.
I don't know about PG-13, but
I was wondering if it was PG. But anyway, at this point, I also gave it 4 stars, Stacey. And I said, I'm really liking this so far. I wanted to see where we're going to go from here. Now, I know, Stacey, you said you would take the candy. And I just wanted to know, did you miss the snake?
Okay. One of my earliest memories growing up was of a snake. So I'm not scared of them. So when our original house the house that I remember growing up in, when I was a kid, I walked outside. It was like 4 years old, and a snake comes up and raises up and looks at me, and I look at it and I run, and I run from it, but I'm not really scared of snakes at all. I mean, they don't bother me at all. I mean, maybe because of that, I have no idea, but I'm not scared of them. Now, if I turn over a rock, I'm going to jump back, but it's not, but, oh, you got a snake? It's not, okay, I mean, I'm not going to get one for a pet, but again, the snake also matched her outfit. So.
Oh, no.
It's a good
It
accessory.
was a blue snake. Yeah, it was a blue
The
snake.
snake automatically says bad person. Like, you know,
Right.
that, the voice, and offering the candy is all a little bit too much for me. I was like, yeah, no.
That's some Lady Gaga stuff right there.
Yeah, no.
So what rating did you give it at 17 minutes?
4, same as Stacey.
A 4. Okay. I will piggyback on both of y'all. I agree that the first 17 minutes was great. I was loving the southern setting. And the first thing that came to my mouth was everybody hates Chris. I don't know why I was thinking the theme song when I heard Chris Rock's voice, because the way he was delivering his lines, it sounded like the way he delivers it in Everybody Hates Chris. And he was putting like emphasis on certain syllables and everything, like impotent, you know, whatever. I thought it was so funny. I was just laughing my head off. I wrote that, so when when the grandma brings him home at the beginning, and she says, "Take off your shoes before you come in my house," I was like, that's a grandma saying. And I said, I bet you she's got plastic on her furniture too. And sure enough, she had plastic on the sofa and the chairs. I was like, that's my grandmama's house. I was a little bit concerned just for the simple fact that Octavia does get typecast a little bit in these roles here lately. It seems like the help type of thing, or the grandma, or somebody who's sick or something, but it's fine. She's doing a really, really great job. I still love her. And then I also wrote that I was confused as to who he was talking to in the beginning, who Chris Rock was talking to. It seemed like he was talking to a classroom of kids, or he was talking to a classroom of other mice. So I was like, what's going on here? You know, whatever. But I did think that there are certain parts in the beginning that were a little bit serious and scary for a child's movie. So I was thinking like Dana, like, what is this rated? Who is this audience for? Because it does feel a lot more mature than the original one did. At least in the beginning, it does. So I was at a 4 in the first 17 minutes. I was loving it. I thought it was fantastic. So see where we go from there.
I can go. I also gave it a 4 as well. I loved it. The first thing I said was, Chris Rock, take my money. I think I just love Chris Rock in terms of social commentary and some of his work. I think he's the best. I can debate anybody on that. I think Chris Rock is just amazing with social commentary. So when he's acting, and similar to what Corey said about everybody hates Chris and all that. So yeah, so good. Chris Rock really got me going at the first part. The music was awesome as well. I love a good sound for a movie. I remember movies and films based on soundtracks and sounds. And so this is one of those kind of, you remember it, and it's a good takeaway. I was a little worried watching this because I know Rotten Tomatoes said like 50%, and then IMDb said a lower score. So I was like, I'm just ready to see what they give me. And I was pretty much pleased in the first 17. I said it relates to my childhood because, like you all are saying, like just growing up Black, those grandma things that, with the plastic and my grandma had a Cadillac and some other kind of things. And so it was just interesting that this little boy, I was like, I want to mentor him. I want to call him and take him through just so cute. But I was like, this is called The Witches for a reason. There's some stuff going on, and obviously there's some buildup. And then my last point I put was, what's up with Alice? Because it stops when Corey said 17 and he put it in the Discord stop. It's like Alice going towards. And I was like, I said to myself, literally, what's up with Alice? Like, is she going to get taken? Is she going to get corrupted? We know what happens. So yeah, I ended with a 4 in my 17 minutes, and I really enjoyed it. It was pretty much a good movie that I would watch again at 17.
All right,
All
Bryan,
right.
it's all resting on you now.
That leaves me. All right, so I'm gonna read this off. So Chris Rock narrates a new version of Roald Dahl's The Witches. I love the first version of this movie that we saw that we've talked about from the Jim Henson studio. So they did everything with puppetry. We're doing this one with CGI trickery, and this one is coming from Robert Zemeckis. So that he's got a high bar to live up to. But he's got the knack with the Snowy Express and the town and the crazy town of the Barbie Army Warrior movie, whatever that was a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah,
You know-
Welcome to Marwin.
I know she's my
That's it.
Yeah,
Welcome to Marwin.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation, but the graphics were good. The graphics were good in that. So the first scene we see this young boy in the car with the snow falling up is just beautiful. So that shot, you're right. He wouldn't have been wearing a seatbelt, but you wouldn't have had that great shot of the upside down snow. So I think I'm sure that they had conversations on the set about that, but it's like, nope, I want the shot. I want the car to be upside down. It's good. It was beautiful. So I was at a 3 at this point in the film. And so I just have this thing. Grandma's trying really hard to keep this kid from drowning in despair, and singing and offering up all this comfort food. There's one shot that I think they missed when she's singing, and there's a line in the song, "I'll be there for you," and just like that could have just been this moment where she's just singing that right at him because she's there for him, and she's always going to be there for him, and through the whole movie she's just there for him, and that she's just like this hero that's that I think is really great. We all have this person, hopefully this person who's always there for us, and she was that person for him. So I'm at a 3 at this, not so much because I'm comparing it to the original movie ultimately, because it's a new version or rendition of the story from the book. So it's not necessarily a remake of the first movie. It's more of a new version or new retelling of the book, and I think that's why it's gotten a lot of off reviews, because so many people were comparing it to the original movie. It's like, oh, we don't need to remake that movie. It's like, well, it's just a new version of this book. So we can make as many versions as we want, as we damn well please. So, yeah, and so every new version is going to have a great twist. Like the color of the primary actors in this is great. It's fantastic. So, yeah, I'm at a 3.
Okay. So let's go ahead and continue our discussion about The Witches. We're going to go up and throw up a spoiler alert right now. So if you haven't seen the movie, go back and watch it if you don't want to hear any further discussion. Ooh. But let's go ahead and finish our discussion of this movie and give our final rating. So,
warning.
What did you guys think after the 17 minutes? Anybody want to go ahead and take the lead?
Well, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Jason, you might be able to answer this for me. This is just an overarching question that I had at the end of this movie. What was the purpose of Grandma being sick? Like, I was thinking she might die, or the sickness would actually play a part at some point in the story. And Corey told me, I think in the original, she has diabetes or she has something. We know what it is. This time, we have no idea what it is. I was waiting for her to turn into a witch. I had no idea what was going on. And then it felt like at the end they just ignored it.
Yeah, because it seemed like she was only getting sick when the witch first came around.
Yeah,
so I feel like there was a time there.
It was a reaction.
That's
or
what
something.
I was thinking. It was.
Yeah. But when she first coughed and she coughed into the napkin and she looked at it, I was like, oh, she just saw blood and they're not going to show us the blood, Right. So yeah, I totally thought she was a lot much sicker. So I think that, I don't know if that was a red herring or not, but it doesn't look like they intended for her to to disappear. I mean,
Yeah.
for the screenplay. So.
Yeah.
And I thought the same thing when she started coughing. Since I saw the original, I was thinking it was more related to the whole diabetes or something was going on. And then when I continued watching it, I was thinking, well, maybe that's her little allergic reaction to witches being around.
Right.
I wasn't sure. They never really explained that.
Yeah. That's a good point.
But okay, let me tell you about what I thought about the movie, the whole rest of it.
Okay.
And let me start with a little story.
Okay.
I have a younger brother, and he's about 5 years younger than me, and we're kind of on a lot of sides on the same wavelength when we watch on certain things. So after I finished watching it, I was like, oh crap, I got to talk to someone about this. Who's watched this? Who's seen the original? And we both loved the original. And I called my brother and said, hey, have you watched The Witches? And he was like, no, not yet. And I was like, when you watch it, you're going to call me on this. So call me when you watch it. And he's like, fine, okay. And I didn't hear from him for a few days, or maybe it could be a couple of weeks because we just text. We don't really call a lot. Then I look at my phone and get a call, and it's like, my brother. And I was like, I know what you're going to call. I know you just watched that movie. You calling me. So I picked up the phone, and I was like, hello? And he was like, so I saw The Witches. And I was like, yes. What happened? And he was like, they kept him a mouse. They kept the little black kid a mouse the whole time. And if you watch the original movie, I have no idea about the book, but then the original movie, the little white kid got to be a kid again.
Yes.
We talked about that.
The whole time. And he was an old mouse because when you see at the end, he has gray whiskers and everything.
Yes.
And I was like, so he's a dark mouse. I'm done. And that was it. I watched the whole thing, and it was just, I was like, it was okay. It wasn't the same as the original, but when they showed him being a mouse, he never became a little boy. He never became a man again. So it's Chris Rock voiceover and never became a man.
Right.
I was like, I'm done.
And by Octavia's math, he's only going to live 9 years, y'all. So just keep that in mind.
Every time they did that little, when you realize that he's talking to kids and that whatever, it's like, looks like the 1970s, and he's an old mouse. So I'm like, and she's still alive. So how much longer does he have? And I don't care if he had a great mousy life, he still never became a boy again. And that just bothered me.
At first, my brother called
him
and said, trying to make a 2. But then I was like, no way, because he's old. Like, with,
he's
whatever. Like, why didn't they turn him back? I have no idea what their decision was.
And I may not have felt this way if it wasn't for the original one I saw. The mouse becomes a kid again. And this one, he wasn't. And I'm so upset.
I have to do some research and follow up on the original story. I have to look that up.
Maybe it is compared to the original story.
It's
but
the
when I look at the other
story.
ones,
It's the original story.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, in the original story, he decides that he wants to stay a mouse. And I think it's because he wants to develop an army or something like that to go after the witches or something. So he actually chooses to stay a mouse.
He could be an army with a kid, but that's the way that it was written. If that's the way that was written,
I might have spelled differently, but seeing that, I was like, you had to make it. Oh my gosh,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Absolutely, a movie for me.
When he's sitting there talking to the grandma, and he's like, so how long do mouses have to live? And she's like, oh, about a year. And I would have been like, no, give me the potion.
3 years. But you would probably get to live 3 times that. That's 9 years.
Yeah.
No. Give me the potion.
Right.
But that was one thing. But that's the very end. Up until that part, I was like, it's okay. Again, I watched the original movie and I liked that. And I guess my biggest thing was I miss Jim Henson's the puppetry. I really miss that part. I know the CGI, special effects and all that, but that part where they're in the little conference room thing and they're take off the gloves and Angelica Houston, when she takes off that face and that, and that nose pops out and all that, and I was like, I miss that puppetry kind of a thing. And for this to go from that to totally CGI, it was like, even if it did a mixture of the two, but the whole totally CGI, it's like, it doesn't feel the same. I know the rubber mask stuff and all that, you know, people think that's dated and stuff, but sometimes it's just really, at least maybe because it's my age range and what I've used to see, it's just, that was just, oh, when you see in her, you know, her nose pops out kind of thing, and you see all the other actors and actresses. And if you originally watched the original Witches, some of those actors were, I think they were guys in dresses. I don't think all of them were even women in that in the original movie.
I don't think they were in this one either. There was one in particular before I was like, that looks like a guy. So
you know, they're taking off the wigs, and they're taking off the gloves. And in the original, they weren't, you know, they didn't have three fingers or claws. They actually, it was just gnarly looking fingers, and their toes were just gone and all that. And her one little toe, that just, oh my gosh. Every time I saw that one long toe,
toe.
This
color
toe, it just bothered me. That just really creeped me out for whatever reason. But I mean, her acting, I mean, she's a great actor. What's her name again? Anne Hathaway. And I mean, it wasn't knocking on her. It was just, to me, that was too much CGI for me. I really appreciate the puppetry from Jim Henson. I do love those old Jim Henson movies where he has the puppetry, and there's some sort of special that used to come on once a week with that. And I mean, I used to love that kind of stuff. So having that and then going full CGI, it's like, could we have just some mixture of the two? You know, we don't have to have the whole one way or the other, just maybe a mixture of it. Yeah. Now the additional, and I'm not sure if they did from the books, but I know his mouse ended up being a little girl who was turned into a mouse, to explain some backstory about her and all that, which was a little bit, which was different than the original witches. They were just regular mice. It's part of the first 17, not really wasn't part of the first 17, but when the grandma was talking about her friend and says she was a lollygagger, I was like, I use that expression, lollygagging. Sometimes you like a lollygag, and it's just, but when she said she became a chicken, I have no idea why. I just kept on thinking, so her eggs, were they like human chicken hybrid? I mean, were those, when they talked about that her eggs, that she laid green eggs, and I never ate any of them. And but I was like, so who's eating them? And what exactly were they? And did they end up eating their child? Those are kind of things in the back of my mind.
Like when he said, damn, that's a big chicken.
She's gonna be on somebody's plate. I was just thinking. And once she starts laying, I mean, this is country, so when she starts laying eggs, she's on the plate, and I'm just, and all that, it made me feel bad too. But that was some of the things I'm thinking.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
You know, no one keeps a chicken just be keeping chicken, not in the country. You go eat it. So you know, I felt kind of bad about that. But overall, I mean, I thought the movie was okay, but what really just kind of tanked it for me was the end. Up to the point, I mean, and again, I never read the books, but by comparing it to the original The Witches, I just like the reveal of the witches in the original better. I do like that puppetry kind of a thing going on. I do like the guy who played I like the fact that because of the time frame and it's Alabama, they didn't really stress on any of the racial stuff, but kind of if you picked up on some of it, because when she came to that hotel and the bellhop was like, "You staying here?" And he was like, "You don't need to tip me. I'll take it." And I was like,
"I just watched this."
Yes, I will take you up, and you don't have to pay me anything. Just come on up. You know, that kind of stuff. So, you know, some of that stuff I was like, yeah, I really don't believe. You know, I'm saying don't believe it, but it's like, still 60s in Alabama. And the guy's like, we're happy to have you. I was like, Really? You know, even though, but I'm not saying that couldn't be the case, but
Right.
but the whole bellhop when he was like, you know, just really could see that happening.
Yeah.
And she brought up stuff, not necessarily racial, but kind of sort of when she talked about, we got to leave. You know, when we said, we've got to leave here, you know, go play safe. And he was like, where? She was like, we're going to this hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when they come there, I mean, it was like, it's where rich white people come to. And it was like, because rich, you know, and he's like, the kids they were going for, he said, were people who were poor. Yeah. She didn't say marginalized, but it's basically marginalized anyone who would not know and take notice of, which again made me think about stuff here in the world now, because when I travel and all that, and I, you know, travel by myself and all that, when I first started, my parents were like, you need to pay attention to this, this, and this. And it's just, they're like, because something happens to you, nobody looking for you. And when they said that, they weren't saying specifically they weren't. It was just, yeah, there's not going to be a whole lot of searching from everything. And granted, at the time I was adult, it's like, made me think, well, when's the last time I saw something like me, you know, on missing? And when I first started traveling, there was no Facebook. There was no, you know, well, there's no Facebook, there's no tweeting, there's no Twitter, there's no nothing like that. So it's like television, newspaper, milk carton. That was it.
Right.
And even then, that made me also think about a few years ago when I went to Tennessee, and there's a big to-do about this high school age girl who went missing. And it was she was kidnapped by her, one of her high school teachers. And and so when I saw that, and someone mentioned there was talk about some inappropriate relationship, and it's like, that's still kidnapping, yes. But it was the whole thing about finding her, but at the same time, around the DC era, there's a lot of young girls the same age who were missing. They were just written off as runaways. And the thing about the teacher, she ran off or supposedly kidnapped by the teacher, but it looks like, to me, it seemed like more she may have run off and still kidnapping because she's underage.
Right.
But on the same side, on the Maryland side, there was one girl, and the DC side, whatever, she was missing and said she ran off with her boyfriend. And they say she's about 15, 16. He's 27. So woman, she ran off with her boyfriend, and that was written off. And this girl we need to find her. She's in danger. And that just made me think of that when she said, you know, the witches only go for was, you know, poor, you know, marginalized, no one's looking out for them. And that just made me think of that. And that's about it. So I think I've used enough time. So.
What would you rate? What was your overall rating, Stacey, of the film after all that?
I still okay. Tell me what's a 2 and a 3.
So the 3 was I'm glad I saw it.
Yeah.
2 is you could do worse, and 1 is worse. So if we really hate something, it's a 1.
I don't know. It's about a 2.5, 3. It would have probably been a solid 3 near the end because of, you know, I did like the original one better in certain aspects like that. But I mean, I like the fact they have, you know, black, you know, little boy, you know, grandma in his Alabama and all that. So I like, but when they made him a mouse, it just went south for me on how I felt about the movie when he never became a little boy again. So I guess maybe 2.5, 3 for me.
It's kind of a shock, isn't it? Because it's like you would think that somehow there would be a potion or some way to reverse the spell. And I think I vaguely remember the ending of the first movie, the boy turning back into a boy again. So it was really shocking to see him not to stay a mouse the whole rest of the time. But again, I didn't read the book either. So
Well, in
But
the
it's
original,
for a kids movie too. Like I felt
Yeah,
like they have a happy ending.
yeah, and
I just so now some kid is scared that he's going to turn into a mouse and never
be that way
I don't know,
forever.
it just-
But the
But-
crazy part about it is, it's like, okay, so you would think that that's not really a happy ending, but then they tried to make it a happy ending by throwing in the "We Are the Family" song and the whole road trip pictures. And so I'm like,
that was just stupid.
Dana,
Yeah.
say it again. Say it
That
again.
was just stupid.
it
Well,
was
they
very
drew the
dumb.
Grand Canyon as a mouse.
That
And
was
cliche.
dumb.
It was very cliche. I was just like,
And the army of kids. So it's like they spent all those years traveling over the places, guess killing witches or turning witches into mice,
yeah,
and they still have all this work to do that they've got to hire all these kids to finish the list.
right.
Had
Exactly.
her up there on the side of that van looking like Aunt Jemima, man. You don't get her. I mean, it did, y'all. It did. I'm sorry. I know. I might get a comment or two about that, but she did. Her face with the circle with the logo, y'all. I was like, I'm done.
Okay, so continue, Jerry. What did you think about the rest of the movie then, and what's your final rating?
I agree with the whole, like, he's not going to be turned back. Like, I was real confused about that. I did end it with the 3
And this is interesting too, because you're someone who hasn't seen the original, so I'm really
Correct.
interested to see what you think. Yeah,
correct. And what that did, Corey, to be honest with you, is it really in my mind made me say, I want to go see the original. I think I really said that to one of you or in the Discord. I was like, I now really want to see what the original and then obviously what we just saw is compared to, because a lot of the gaps that I had, like when she made the potion and it turned black, and I was like, what ingredients is she using? It's just like, that was a weird part of the movie for me, as well as the ending, as I just said. And there were parts where I felt the CGI where, like, the witches, I know Stacey mentioned the toes and the nose and different things, but I wanted it to be stronger. Like that scene in that main ballroom, it was good. It was one of my favorite parts, but I felt like, I was like, the original probably did it more justice than like the CGI version of what I'm seeing right now. So I mean, I like the soundtrack. Again, the music was on point from start to finish, so that was cool. To me, Corey, to answer your question though, I gave it a 3, but I was like, something in my mind is saying the original is like a 4 or 4.5, because the young boy either changed back, or there was something where, like, that was missing with this movie that took me from a 4 at my 17 down to the 3. It's not that it wasn't intriguing. I would watch this like with my younger cousins, but it's not one of those movies that had a ton of replay value. And that's just me. Again, I like animated movies. I like when you kind of like animals are going. I mean, in Milan, I did say I wanted talking animals, so maybe that was karma. maybe that was a little karma. But but in this, it was a little like I wanted him to transform later. So I wanted more of the boy. I wanted more of that grandma young boy dynamic. I wanted more of the, like Stacey was saying about the country and the, like, it was just kind of like, okay, he's a mouse. Okay, he's doing these little like Home Alone type tricks and getting the potion, and it wasn't as funny as the beginning, and it wasn't as intriguing to me as the beginning. And I believe that the other one, the original 1990 one, I was like, I really want to see it because there's a lot of things that I didn't get in this. But it wasn't a flop. Like I said, a 3 isn't like a horrible, rating on our score, but it wasn't like, I mean, this could have been a 4 or this could have been a 4.5. And I mean, I don't even know if I would watch it again, y'all. I mean, it was good, but I enjoyed seeing it for the first time. But this is one of the few films that, like, usually I'm like, I'm good with this one, and then I don't have to see the one in the past. This one, I absolutely have to see the original and or read the book, because of those gaps that the narrative didn't really fill in, and it kind of rushed through. And then, like Dana said, the coughing, I was like, okay, this woman is coughing. She made me cough. I'm sitting here. I mean, you making me cough, and I got COVID. Like I'm coughing. I got COVID. Like, and it didn't lead to anything. One of my biggest pet peeves in films is giving us something and don't take us somewhere and or close the loop. And they dropped the ball on that. Again, if you all saw something that I missed, I would be willing to listen. But I was like, I don't get it, because when she was at now I did remember when she was at the dining table and she saw her over there with the witch like eating the soup and she didn't eat. I was like, well, is she about to take the soup and turn it in? But even that was a failed moment, because all they did was get the key and the witches turned, the stuff was in the soup and, but I mean, that could have been stronger too. But I thought that was the moment where grandma was going to do something, turn into a witch, or maybe she's, her unveiling of something, but it didn't lead to anything. So I was disappointed there. But that was the moment I was like, yo, this 3 about to turn into 3.5 or 4, but it didn't.
Okay. So. Were you going to say something, Bryan?
I was going to say some stuff. Yeah, I think they missed a lot of opportunities. Like there were a couple of times when the mice were running from across the shelf in the kitchen, and they could have had some kind of really cool, like total freak out. There's mice in the kitchen kind of moment there. I mean, it was a lot like Remy, Remy situation, but they got through there without any incidents. I mean, nothing happened in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And they really could have done something there with that I think that it could have been worthwhile. The other aspect was that there was a mouse infestation reported in this hotel. And so, but nobody really reacted to mice scurrying around, really. They just brought the traps to the room and just hid them everywhere. They were in the witch's room, the main witch's room too.
500 of them under the sofa.
Yeah, but that was an awful lot. But it wasn't until that final transformation scene in the dining room where all the witches were turning into rats that they had this big giant freak out moment about rodents in the hotel. And it just seemed it did seem late. The only super strong reaction really we got two. One from housekeeping and one from the mom who grandma was trying to give their child to, and they weren't that upset that the kid was missing. It was weird.
Not at all.
So after all of these stories we just told, right, Stacey? It's just like, what's going on with this? This is how this would work. So that I think that those were some missed opportunities there. The how to spot a witch moments. What makes a witch, and that the reveal of these women in the meeting room. I think I'd forgotten when you talked about the masks and the noses and the mask faces being revealed. I just saw the illustrations again from the book of these witches, and those masks were very much like the original illustrations in the book. And all these stories just always have these great illustrations, and you didn't get that. These witches look like Venom in a dress. I mean, that's what I put in the chat. Just these giant like jack-o'-lantern mouths, or venom mouths. They just went really far, and that's why I think that why we think it's a PG-13, because it's like they're scary.
And it's really PG, actually.
It was PG, yeah. But those faces were scary, and they didn't even have the plastic noses. That was the only thing. It was just did it make it more scary because they looked more real and even harder to tell that they were witches. I don't know. But those scarred mouth things were weird.
But that scarred mouth thing, like when I think about it, like that's stuff that I've seen in like American Horror Story. That's like this is stuff that I've seen in more adult films. That's why I was like, Corey knows that's probably one of the things that gets me in all horror. Anytime like people's jaws come off or they open up real wide, that's just freaky to me. And I did think, I was like, so knowing it's PG, I am kind of like shocked because I did think it was a little like, I don't know. I thought it was scary. Now I barely remember the original. All I remember, y'all can tell me if I'm wrong because I haven't looked this up, but I just remember in my mind, it reminds me of a bald eagle. I don't know why, but I just remember like a long, like really long pointing nose and just like, and it was scary to me at that time too. But this to me that's not scary to me as an adult, but the mouth thing is, so I can only imagine it'd be scary to a child. So I don't know. Like, I don't know why they did that because I think from what we all remember, the nose is such an important part of what they look like in the old one. Why wouldn't you do that in the newer one? Like, big nostrils and we see her sniffing. That was just.
Yeah, it was comedic. It was just like, because like in the description in the book, the nostrils are larger than a normal nostrils and they're curled up and they almost look like snails. I'm like, oh. It's a really neat description, but how do you do that? And if everything's CG, then you have to do that for every single shot in the film. So yeah.
So what would you rate it?
So you do it as a mask.
So what did you rate it overall, Bryan?
I went from the 3 down to a 2.5 because because I just think that it was just kind of felt empty. It felt like almost there, almost done. Like each scene was only partially really thought out. Like they could have had some more conversations. Oh, what could we do to make this better, even better? And it just seems like there was missing things like that. I don't know what each scene needed, but yeah, it just seemed like it was just a little bit underdeveloped.
Okay.
The ideas.
So I want to talk a little bit about what I would call the scene, because I think it was the major scene in the movie, and that's in the ballroom or whatever. I felt, and you kind of alluded to this, Bryan, I felt it was clownish. That was one of the things I kind of took away from it. Like, even though the faces and stuff were scary, I was tired of her flying around and looking at her big toe. Like, it got to the point it was just too much. I was over it. And I was like, let's move on from this. And I felt like for witches, she could do all that and make her arms all long and get all up in the vent and stuff, but you can't catch a mouse. Like, I just like, what kind of witches are these?
Right.
Like, I would be so upset. Like, what kind of powers did you have? They suck.
Right.
I'll say the same thing. Like Jeremy brought up when Octavia was making the potion, it turned color. So I was like, oh, it's working. Like, there wasn't anything there, like, to say, I guess they were like, oh, but it just felt like not a big enough deal like it should have. I feel like the fact that we go into Octavia's witch doctor closet, she has all this stuff in here. This would have been the opportunity. She doesn't have to be a witch, but there is no reason why she couldn't come up with a potion to turn them kids back into children. I feel like otherwise her role could have been so much bigger than I feel like it really, really was, other than just the caretaker. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know why they didn't explore that, because I felt like that's where they were going and they didn't. And I think it definitely kind of lacked, but I just think it was kind of, that whole scene anyway was childish. But I wanted to talk about the controversy around this that I heard about. And, I was talking with Corey about this, and I don't know, people may not like what I have to say, but that's okay. There's talk about people who really have these types of physical, handicaps, deformities, I don't know what you want to call them. Some people were very upset that they were kind of turned into something scary. And, in the world that we live in now, we're also PC. If we were to create a scary monster, they can't have any deformities. They can't be fat. They can't be tall. They can't be black. They can't, it's like we're getting to a point where I feel like, I remember there was the controversy about the people because we talk about it like with the Soleil, who are able to, do all that,
Contortionists.
and how some people have taken that and turned that, and like, how people walk backwards down the stairs and make it scary. And I wonder if we're just becoming a little bit too PC in that, like, I didn't feel like Annie, as she wants to be called, Annie Hathaway, she came out and apologized. It says she wasn't aware that she was doing something to hurt people's feelings, I guess, or making fun of them or whatever. And I don't really feel like she needed to apologize for that. Like, I don't feel like, and I don't know how y'all feel, but like, what are we supposed to do at this point? I didn't get the feeling that she was making fun of people who look like this or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I think there's a difference between what she was doing and Gwyneth Paltrow and Shallow Hal. You know what I'm saying? I didn't feel like she was necessarily making fun of them. Yes, it was scary. Growing up for me, amputees used to scare the hell out of me. Why? Because they used to be, I didn't know anything about them. I wasn't exposed to them enough, right? So I think exposure can be good, even if it leads to a conversation. Like, I didn't even know about some of the stuff that I found out about just reading about it. So I'm like, at what point are we being too PC? Does not doing some of this stuff actually allow us to open up and learn more about things we may not have otherwise known about? I don't know, but I'm just, I don't know. What do y'all think? I mean, do you feel like?
What do you? You say that you heard controversy was because their claws that was missing.
So yes, some people have body parts that are longer than other body parts. Also, people like with alopecia were upset about the whole ball thing. It was, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we've had bald villains forever. I mean, I'm sure is somebody mad at is somebody mad at James Bond and all this other, like, I don't know, where do you draw the line?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not, I mean, I didn't read any of the controversy, and so I don't know, but I mean, I remember when you said about the controversy about, was it Us and the voice she used? Lupita, talk about how she got that voice, and there was actually complaints because she's some sort of there's some sort of syndrome or something that people do have talk like that or whatever, and using that, and she had to apologize for that. So, I mean, it's hard for me to say. I don't know about how the people's feelings are on certain things. Really, I think they could have left the claws out, because I just thought that was just too much for me, because I just didn't like that at all. I prefer the knotted up, and it probably somebody with arthritis.
Right, exactly. Yep.
I'm a witch because I got arthritis. I'm like, no. But but I mean, I'm not. I have mixed feelings about that, using certain things as a device plot, but you're kind of right up to a point. It's like, if nothing's on the table anymore, if everything's off the table, then
what do you do?
I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, the filmmakers, they make these decisions how they're going to depict the witches. I'll just go back to this. I mean, I just freshly read this description of the witches, what they look like, and I'll just go back to that description. The witches' fingers have cat claws. That's why they wear the gloves in the book, because they have to hide their cat claws. So it wasn't because they had fewer fingers or any of that. So that was an actual decision that was made for this particular version of the film. And the same thing with the one toe on the foot. The description of the witch's feet is that they didn't actually say chopped off with an axe in the book, but they were chopped off. There were no toes, none. So they had this little description about how difficult it was. Like, why wouldn't they just wear sensible shoes and be done with it? And it was this whole thing about just trying to blend in and look like normal women of the day, wearing these fancy shoes, which was torturous when you had a full foot of toes, and still is. But yeah, they make these decisions, and And I was kind of wondering about that too, just to kind of go through that scene, Dana, you were describing about the long arms in the air conditioner vent. Did it feel like this movie was trying to be 3D too? Like there were some.
Yeah, there were certain parts where I felt like that. Yep.
Yeah. So it's like with the toe, there was absolutely like 3D toe coming down at you.
Sorry, Bryan, your visual is killing me.
I mean, because that's what they did. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, they did that in a couple of scenes.
I think the important thing to take away from this is that I think it's worthwhile having the conversation. So just like when we were talking about the contortionists and how you can turn it into interpretive dance and do something really beautiful with your body. We're talking about it, and I think just talking about it and bringing it out in the open and discussing how other people's feelings and how other people react to how they're depicted or someone else is depicted, or it's just really important to really build empathy in people, so we can really know what the consequences of what we're doing, the art we're making, and how it makes everybody feel and anyone feel. So I don't think that anybody is gonna. Well, I don't think it's. I think it's gonna take a while for us to ever make anything that isn't offensive to someone. But I don't think that. I think that as long as we are talking about it, then there can be big efforts made to really try to be more thoughtful in what we're doing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So. I think that it's I think that I think that the apologies that we hear about those kinds of things that happen, it's like they're sincere. I mean they didn't think that they were doing anything that would hurt anyone, and so I think that it's okay. Absolutely, I mean, who am I to say it's okay or not? But it's I'm okay with that. I don't think everybody is gonna take that moment or be asked to apologize for everything that's ever been made. It would take us a long time to go through all of that.
Sometimes I wonder that. Sometimes I see it and I'm like, and I realize that's part of being in the public eye, right? Because imagine, and sometimes you see people apologizing for your stuff and I'm like, oh, we used to do that too. Like, I mean, because certain things growing up, I mean, Corey and I had this thing that we call a kitchen table talk, where we say whatever we need to say to each other, between us. And I'm sure sometimes it isn't PC. And then I just think about things we used to say and do growing up that weren't, and it wasn't because we were being harmful. We didn't know. And so I just think having the conversation is important. But at the same time, I want to be able to have that conversation and be able to separate and say, hey, not every time, just like when we watch Love on the Spectrum and some people thought they were making fun. Not at no point did I think this was making fun. I feel like that show enriched my life as a person. I learned stuff and things like that. So imagine if somebody was like, oh, we can't make this because some people might think we're making fun. It's just, I just want to be protective of that, Like I feel like because of things like social media or the internet and stuff, we have the opportunity to know so much more about things that we probably never would have come across in our everyday lives. And I love that. So I just want to I just get nervous when I'm like, I understand where you're coming from, trust me. But at some point we've got to say, hey, this wasn't intentionally to make you feel or, look bad. This is part of a whole thing here. This is, we're not singling you out or, anything like that. I don't know. I just thought it was weird. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say very, very quickly, I agree, Dana, and there's a thin line between appreciation and reaching. And I think some people can reach a little far, some people can appreciate, but I think that threshold can be blurred for some people. Like, oh, I appreciate this, kind of like Bryan said, I appreciate this art, I appreciate someone acknowledging this. And then some people can be like, I know if I was an actor, if I heard that, I'd have been like, I mean, y'all are going way too far, but that's just me though. See, again, this is my perspective. I didn't even think when I saw that an hour and 44 minutes, I didn't even think about that stuff. I thought about the image of how it can be portrayed, but because we are dictating witches, Like this ain't Charmed where it's good witches. These are bad witches. These are the ones who want to turn these little children into mice. So I don't know. I accepted that for what it is, which is a movie of, number one, it's a new remake of an older classic. I don't know, but I do think that it's important to talk about those things. But for people to attack and make comments, I mean, I would love to see him. I haven't read any of those either. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they got a new idea. Maybe like how we can rewrite movies in L5, maybe they can rewrite it. So tell us what new ideas you got.
Whatever idea you have, no, you'll probably offend somebody else.
Right.
You know,
Right. Sorry, Stacey. I just want to
same thing. It's just like you can. There's a difference between. I mean, I don't have any problems like that. When I originally watched the original The Witches, I didn't think anything of it, but every time it comes back on, I kind of watch it again. And this time when I watched the new one, you were talking about that old lady who sits on the so-and-so could be a witch. And it's like, the nurse could be a witch. The teacher. And I was like, my mom's a teacher. The retired teacher could be a witch. And, and I just thought that, but I didn't think, oh my gosh, why are you talking about teachers? Right. Or if you watch the original one, they talk about the witches, they never wear pretty shoes because they have no toes. So they wear these cloddy, sensible shoes. And as a kid, I didn't think anything of it. As an adult, I was like, those are my shoes. I'm on my feet all day. I need something that, So, yeah, but I would thought of that, but I wasn't, I mean, granted, it's not a physical thing. It was just, for a second, I was like, so what, my shoes? I mean, I can't wear sensible shoes and not be a witch. Yeah. But it's just, I think, again, it's different if you have something that you cannot change, if I'm, versus something like shoes, something you can. And it could be a difference in that. But I do think it does make people talk about things, make people do maybe some research into it too, because before us, and when they talked about her, how she spoke they talked about the syndrome, and I cannot remember it, but that made me look it up just because they talked about it. And now that what you said, that makes me think about the guy from American Horror Story when they were doing the one having to be freak show. So it's not the best. They had the lobster. I mean, I know there are people out there, and that maybe it could be something because of what they experience in the world. It hits them a lot more differently than it would hit someone like us. Right. But I do think having stuff like that, and then just, if we didn't realize it and you apologize, like we did not mean harm in that, but to not have anything on the table, it's like, well then, I mean, granted, the scariest people are the psychos that just live like next door to you, but still having a real monster, yeah. It's what will be taken off the table if you take everything off. So
how do you depict them? You got to do something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what monster can you really have, because there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to looks and what is out there. There's nothing really new that you can say, I've come up with this new thing, unless something totally out of this world. I'm just thinking, what could you make that would not at some point offend somebody?
Yeah.
The only person who I know who makes out of this world characters, Corey, you know who I'm talking about. I'm going to say the name wrong, so say it for me. You know who I'm talking about? I love him.
Yes.
Okay, say it.
You say it.
I'm going to mess his name up.
That's okay. I'll correct you.
No, okay. No. Y'all, everybody knows it. I can never say it right.
Guillermo del Toro.
Guillermo del Toro.
And he has
Pan's Labyrinth, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and the thing he has eyes.
I mean, I've never seen characters like what this man thinks about. I don't know how he sleeps at night. Anyway, they're fantastic. But I'm sure somebody somewhere is like, that looks like me. And I don't know.
He's attached to this movie.
He is?
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Ian Zemeckis. He was a producer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I love him, and I love his creatures. I do. You know, and I
Yeah.
think he's somebody who goes far above and beyond to come up with things that we haven't seen. But even then, there are elements of things we've seen. You know,
Right.
we can only imagine, but so much.
Mhm.
You know,
Right. Right.
so,
The creature I love the best was the one with the hands on his eye,
yes.
the eyes on his hands.
Mhm.
Oh,
And somewhere there's somebody with an eyeball on their hand.
Now, Dana.
And now we
So
just
creative.
laughed at that person. So I want y'all to be aware.
oh, we're terrible. See, we're just terrible.
So Dana, what was your final rating
Oh,
of the
yeah.
film?
I gave it a 3. It also went downhill for me. I was like, yeah, at 4, I was like, this is good at the first 17, but it went, and I'm not cool with him not turning back into a little boy. I just, even if they had left Kristen Chenoweth as a mouse and the little boy who eats the chocolate as one, maybe I would have been okay with that. But I just felt like leaving them all as mice and pretending that was good somehow, some way. That didn't make any sense. Like, I don't know people who dream about being mice. I just didn't feel like that little boy, you know, like Stacey was saying, is not going to get to live out his childhood, his adulthood, nothing. I can't celebrate that. I'm sorry.
Dana, I had a blood moment in the film when she reached her arm, stretched through, and hit that fan. I
That was
thought,
the black marks.
yeah, I wanted blood again. I know you relate to me. I mean, I know she's a witch, a special type of case, but I'm like, that's it. I thought of you.
And it was, and the blood kind of it splattered, but crashed like crystals or fingernail clippings or something. It was super weird.
Yeah, and I think it turned black or something like that.
Yeah, it was all
black.
black.
And she had a little band-aids all over. But yeah, it should have just like splattered everywhere, chunks of meat all of it.
And then she was healed up in the next scenes, right? Like a cartoon.
Well, she still had band-aids on though.
The whole movie?
What kind of witch doesn't stay healed?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
What kind of witch you can't heal yourself like that? Or
Yeah,
whatever,
that's
but-
what I'm saying. Y'all
It's
got
fun.
some black powers.
But I did like that scene. That was funny. I mean, I thought that there were some funny parts in the movie that probably weren't supposed to be funny that I thought was pretty comical. And I liked in that ballroom scene where the one witch died, like she turned into ash or whatever. Was it that scene or was there another scene? Like one of the witches.
She
turned.
killed her.
That's the ballroom when she
Yeah.
said,
Question.
"How are we just supposed to do that?" And he was like,
Yeah. She got
Now,
zapped.
that was actually a good question.
Yeah. I thought that was cool. I like that scene. You know, but overall, I enjoyed it. I'm glad that I saw it. It's not great. It's nothing compared to the original. The original is so much better, but I still thought that there were some really good parts to it. I liked some of the CGI, and I was teetering. You know, who is this audience for? Because it is kind of scary, a lot scarier. Even though because of CGI, they can go a little bit further with the scary parts to it. But I kind of enjoyed it. It did go down. Anne Hathaway's accent was getting on my last nerve. Like she just went there, and there were parts where like I was so glad we have subtitles on because I can't understand what she's saying, you know. So you know, and that was what she was supposed to do. She was like, I'm just gonna have fun with this character. I'm just gonna do the accent. I know it's horrible, but I'm just gonna go there. But it just lasted for too long. I was just like, oh my God, this accent is just going too crazy. And I agree with what Dana, I agree with a lot of you guys were saying. I agree with what Dana was saying about how the grandma really could have had a bigger role and a bigger purpose in this movie because the whole time she's building up saying that she's going to take care of her grandson, and she can heal him. She's talking about the galvanized nails and da-da-da-da. It's like you had the power. You had this room that you could have made a potion and kept him as a child. So I agree with everything that you guys are saying. It does go down. I'm glad that I saw it. Yes?
Before you give your rating, just what you said. I don't know about y'all, but because we know Octavia was in there mixing the herbs and doing all this stuff, she had so much time to be prepared for if she ever saw those witches again, because
Yes.
she knows that people can be turned into things.
Yes.
Maybe that would have been my life goal, to be like trying to figure out ways to undo that. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like she just lived her life, didn't think twice about her friend is now chicken and eaten, and whatever. I mean, maybe that should have been something. Don't you think that would have changed her life somehow, some way, and made, maybe kind of pushed her towards a different type of future? I don't know.
I agree with that.
Yeah, originally I was going to say maybe they put that in there for her character to make it plausible that she would believe that witches exists. But that's what her backstory was for.
Yeah,
I mean, knowing that the stranger turned her friend into a chicken.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing it for herself. That's all we needed to know, that she believed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or just have her try different variations of a potion elixir that she's like, okay, I got like 2 or 3. Like, if Dana is right, which is like, she's had all her life to build these like remedies to know, like, okay, I know my friend just turned into, so potentially my grandson, my friend, like, I would be developing multiple like solutions, and that would have been fun seeing her go through, okay, this one didn't work, okay, now I might need 2 potions or some other thing that's like, like, though, that discovery of a character gives us character development and makes her stronger. It appears to her that, like, she ain't, like Dana's saying, she ain't gonna quit to figure out how to bring him back. Like, she'll do whatever it takes. Kind of like John Q. I'll do whatever it takes for my son. I go do whatever it takes to get him back. Like, give me that energy. I'm sorry, y'all. Give me that energy. I would have loved it. That thing would have went from a 3 to a 4.5 just by like that discovery.
So let's play a little game.
So Corey to give his little, because I interrupted.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what's your final score?
My final score was a 3 also. So it seems like we're all kind of on the same page. I give it a 3. But I also have a question. Dana had a question, so I have a question too.
Okay.
Maybe I missed something. But where did that trunk come from that had all that money in it? Like, what was the whole purpose of that trunk? And where did it come from?
We don't know where it came from. We know it was the main
witches, and it was for them to build their chocolate or candy shops.
The candy shops and stuff.
It was the seed money for each witch was supposed to go up to there and get the money so they can start their own little candy shops wherever they were.
Well,
to make the chocolate that would turn the kids into the mice.
They had enough money in there to have a Willy Wonka chocolate factory, because there's a lot of money up in there. And I love that Grandma was just
they're gonna turn all the kids. You gotta have a lot of candy shops for every kid out
there.
Good
quality candy.
Quality candy.
So
I was making diamond chocolate they were trying to create.
So if she had so much money, why did she want the cheapest soup?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
That's how she got the money. That's how she got the money.
Being frugal.
Yeah, being frugal. That's how she got it.
Why do they want the kids dead?
Because they stink. Because they stink.
What?
They smell.
That's the only reason. And so they don't smell as they get older.
That was what was told in the movie, was what Bryan says.
Well, I know they said they smell, but just stay away from them.
They just hated kids. We don't have to go into that detail. They just hated kids,
I just also love the fact that Octavia took that money and was starting to give it to the help. I thought that was just great. I was like, you get $100. You get
but now she gave it to certain.
Everybody gets
aware of who she gave it to.
She was very aware. Yep.
This is not a racial movie, but it was clear that the people who did it were aware of what things probably really would like. So we were like, little.
That's exactly right. Yep. That was good. So yeah, there were bits and pieces of it that I really did like, but then again, it did kind of go downhill from all the things that you guys were talking about. So I was probably about a 3. I'm glad that I saw it, but I probably wouldn't watch it again. But yeah, I'm just glad that I saw it. It wasn't horrible. Yeah. So what were you gonna say, Bryan?
I was gonna say so. A couple of times I referenced some of the descriptions in the book. So before we got on the call, we were talking about another description in the book about the potion. What's in the potion that makes kids turn into mice? And I thought it was kind of cool what was in the potion, but what do you think, and so I'm going to quiz. So Corey, what component of the potion actually turns the kids into a mouse? What's in the potion that turns them into a mouse?
Some kind of cheese block? I don't know.
Stacy, you remember?
I don't remember what you said. Was it 95 mouse tails or something like that?
The sauteed mouse tails.
Tails.
Yeah. There's 2 other ingredients. Dana.
Yes.
Whoa. It's specific because they have purposes.
Okay.
Okay. I'll feed you the question though. What would you put in a potion to make someone smaller?
A telescope backwards.
Yeah. The wrong end of a telescope. You're going to look at somebody through the wrong end of the telescope and they get smaller. So you put the wrong end of the telescope into your potion.
Corey is dead.
Then why would they come out smaller and not smaller and made out of metal?
Because duh. Jeremy, we don't want this potion to just happen immediately. So what do you put in the potion so that it has a time delay?
A watch or a watch, something that tells time.
Yes. The alarm clock. You put the alarm clock. You set the alarm for tomorrow morning, so it's got a delay in it. You saute that until it's nice and squishy, and then you mix it all in together in your grinder, and you get all of these parts all squished up, and then you boil it for, I don't know, days, and it turns into this.
Still have chunky ass soup. So
Oh, you put it in your NutriBullet.
So in the book, it gives you the potion to change kids to mice.
Okay. Mice.
So it has that in the book.
Yeah.
Is it the witch is dictating that to someone?
They're talking about it, and so the main witch is telling the other witches the recipe, and to Annie Hathaway's and Angelica Houston's accent, the main witch in the book is written that way. With this just crazy, like Transylvania almost, vampire-y kind of accent. It's really fun to read because if you read it out loud to someone, which, I did. I didn't read this one, but I read out other Roald Dahl books to my kids. It's fun to do the voices.
Yeah.
And so so my question about that recipe, talking about the recipe, is because early in this film, we see the Grand Witch turn the friend into a chicken. Did she start up making the recipe with chicken parts?
Yes, chicken feet.
Yeah, chicken feet probably.
Yeah, chicken feet.
Yeah.
Everything else could stay the same because she's still smaller.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how long it took. It took her a minute to turn into chicken.
It took her a day to turn because it was like the next day, next morning.
So she still had the alarm clock and the telescope. So now we're making the potion to turn the mouse back into a kid. So with that logic, what would be the cure potion?
Kid parts.
Maybe. Maybe that's why she couldn't bring herself to making that potion.
That bad enough.
Doesn't have to be live kid parts.
Right. I got questions.
Oh gosh.
That is funny. That's good stuff. I did like the transformation of Annie turning into a chicken. I thought that was kind of freaky and cool. With her turning into.
I would have liked more of that, Corey. Actually, I didn't mean it. I would have liked more of that.
Yeah, me too. That was
Yeah, the super transformation to a mouse and to the rats, they happen so fast.
Yeah,
it would be kind of cool for it to have been a little bit more gradual. Yeah.
Like the chicken.
like the chicken.
And the other original movie where it was more a slower process where you can actually see the little kid and it had the mouse features and then more and more.
Yeah.
Which, puppetry. I watch
Yeah.
y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would suggest I would put something else in there instead of rat tails, maybe snails, something small enough that you can step on, or in my case, sprinkle salt over it. Like, again, if I'm really trying to get rid of these, maybe that's something else besides a rat mouse that I can turn these things into. But now I've already spent way too much time thinking about this.
Well, one of the things I missed, not really missed, but one of the things that I really thought creepy when I saw it when it first came out was the picture of how they were actually putting kids in paintings.
Oh,
That really creeped me out, because when the original one, the grandma was talking about her friend and it wasn't, didn't turn into a chicken. And the original one, her friend goes missing and the parent had bought this painting before she was missing. And then the next day, the little girl is in the picture and, in the still life painting, like sitting, just, looking out. And then they said the next day she'll be in a different spot, but she's moving in there. And that just really creeped me out. That freaks me out more than that. I know the chicken should, because, could be potential cannibalism in there, but the whole picture thing, because, paintings, you go to those old paintings, there's always a little kid, there's always something like that. And the fact that of a painting moving, every day is a little bit different.
That's
And she grew up in that picture too, so she actually got older in it, and it's
really freaky.
That's awesome.
I mean, but if you remember that's what's in there. And then eventually they said she became an old woman and disappeared. And then if you watched the movie later on, when they're in the hotel and Joker Houston's character sees a little kid in a picture, and it's like in mid walk or whatever, and she just scratches it and walks off, and the kid just disappears off that painting. Yeah, I don't remember that.
I don't remember that.
No, but that sounds awesome.
Because I was like, oh my gosh.
But that is creepy and horrifying and perfect. And that reminded me of Coraline.
Me too.
Terror.
Like that, where you were like just sitting like that. It reminded me of the boy
terror of being turned into a doll with the button eyes and
I love that movie.
It's so good.
I own it. That's a fact.
It's a 5. Cool.
All right. Well, if anybody, go ahead, baby.
I was gonna say I have a quick question that's not related to the movie.
Okay.
But it has to go with the times. All right, really quick. Don't spend too much time thinking about this. They have to be alive. For your inauguration, tell me the 2 performers who are performing.
Lady Gaga and
I was traveling, so J-Lo. I heard about her.
Who's performing at yours?
Am I? Oh my!
At your inauguration, I said Lady Gaga, and who else did I say? I said Lady Gaga and
Patti LaBelle.
Patti LaBelle. That's what I said. Lady Gaga, Patti LaBelle.
Who's performing?
I'll go ahead and say mine because I already said it to Corey. I am going to have Janet Jackson and Michael Bublé.
I'll invite David Byrne from Talking Heads, and let's see, They Might Be Giants.
Okay.
The band They Might Be Giants.
Okay.
I would have Anita Baker sing. Love me.
Very
some
classy.
Anita. I would have Jay-Z, and he would
there we go.
Wait, what, Data?
You said Anita Baker. I was like, very classy. And then you were like, Jay-Z, 99. I was like, there you go.
You got to appeal to the masses,
classy,
Dana.
a little ratchet. It's
A little ratchet. You got to appeal to everybody. You know, I could have said Luther, but I mean Anita. You know, I can't have Anita and Luther looking at each other. I have a little modern, you know.
I know when Obama became president and Beyonce sang "At Last," but I thought it should have. I thought it should have been Etta James. I always thought that should have been her to sing that. I mean, I know, and because she was alive at the time, it's like that was her song, and she knew. She was back in there when he thought that could never happen, and I was like, God, that'd be great if she was singing it. So I would say, if you could bring people from the dead,
you cannot, Stacey.
That's
we all no, that's too easy. No, you got to use what
is that? I don't even pay attention enough to who I really enjoy.
Who do you listen to?
I just listen to what's over the radio. I like stuff I listen to is like Taj Mahal. It's just
okay. We're gonna bring Cardi B and
Beyonce, and it'd be like that's what everybody would say, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Well, this will be very interesting.
Did you say Meg Thee Stallion?
I said Megan Thee Stallion in that name. Thee Stallion. What is it?
Yes.
Wait, it's what?
It's Meg Thee Stallion, I think. The in the middle.
Yeah, I said the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm right now listening to house music, so I'm like, that's not gonna be who I want.
That'd be awesome though.
Somebody roll out that DJ cart.
Some dubstep.
He sings it good. Big Frida. I mean, that's what I'm reading. And I was like, that's not sure. And it's like, that's what it is. That and who else?
All of Big Frida songs sounded like to me. I don't know why. They all them booty popping songs, and
I love that. I love walking to those and working out, just doing stuff. It's like, oh, and I'm walking. Like, she's really good. And who's the guy who sings Uptown Funk, Perm?
Bruno Mars.
Bruno Mars.
Okay, Big Frida, Bruno Mars. I like the collection here. It's diverse.
Very diverse.
Okay.
I love it. We hope that you enjoyed this podcast. Please make sure you tune in every time that we do another review or anything discussion. So click that like button if you like it.
Yes, I do know that my plant is dying.
What are you growing back there?
Death is what.
It's some type of bamboo tree that the oral surgeon gave me, and it was doing fine. Like I left town for like 3 weeks and didn't water it, and came back. It looked great. I'm back watering it and giving it sun. It's supposed to be watered like every 2 days, and it's dying. So I think I need to neglect it again. And just,
a little too much water then maybe.
All
right.
Well, thanks everybody for joining our podcast. We will see you guys next time.
Bye.